Russia can launch up to 1,000 drones over Ukraine at the same time. European countries have started talking about mobilizing military resources due to the threat from Russia. We discuss current events with Bild analyst Julian Röpcke. Mr. Röpcke, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Let's start with the news that Britain, France, Germany and the United States have lifted restrictions on the range of military supplies to Ukraine. The media writes about this, citing German Chancellor Merz. How do you assess whether the cancellation of such restrictions could have a significant positive impact on Ukrainians' struggle with Russia in this war? What is your opinion?
Yeah, I'm very sorry that you asked this question first, and I have to disappoint you first, because what our Chancellor said today is that these restrictions were already lifted. He didn't say he did it right now. He didn't say it happened today. He said it happened. And this is basically true. We know that there have been a very few couple of Scalp EG and Storm Shadow attacks on Russian territory. And we all remember, hopefully, the attack last year on Rylsk, the big column of the Russian army in this case, which was trying to go to Kursk. So I think since last summer, since August latest, Ukraine is allowed to use all Western supplied weapons in Russia without any restrictions. The problem is there are not many Western supplied weapons, and this is the big problem. I think I remember, if I remember correctly, Ukraine has less than 10 ATACMS right now. Ukraine has less than 50 Storm Shadow and Scalp EG cruise missiles, and this is why you don't see them in action. And I think it is interesting from our Chancellor right now, because there's domestic pressure, of course, on him, whether or not he supports Ukraine more or less than our former Chancellor Scholz did. It's interesting that he names this right now, but I mean, practically, it is very nice to not have restrictions on weapons supplied by Germany, but you don't have any weapons supplied by Germany, which could be used deep inside Russian territory, so far at least.
Meanwhile, for the third day in a row, Russia has been carrying out a massive attack on the Ukraine territory. It is launching drones and missiles. What do you think is the purpose of these attacks?
Well, I think there are different purposes, unfortunately. One is, of course, again, to show the West that they cannot help Ukraine. That Russia is a strong and mighty power which will destroy Ukraine. I think this is the very aim of Russia, to destroy Ukraine. We have heard this, that they are annexing altogether 5 regions, if you include Crimea. And they already threatened that they will also attack Sumy and Kharkiv and maybe even Chernihiv, because it's opposite of Bryansk. So Putin said last week that there will be a new buffer zone. And at the same time, you see all these attacks. Well, of course, there might be a military purpose, at least partially in it. I'm sure that some of these drones are directed at critical infrastructure and at factories. But of course, you know that many of these drones and also cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, they're hitting civilians and they're killing civilians and killing people. And I think this is the aim here for Putin. He said if the West uses this so-called language of ultimatums, as he calls it, he will not accept it. He will be more aggressive. And I think this is what he wants to show. At the same time, of course, there is still this hope. I don't think it's working, but the hope in Russia that this will have a psychological effect on the Ukrainian public. If you are increasing the number of daily drone strikes from 200 to 300, this is what we are seeing now. And I have heard from Ukrainian analysts that this might be up to 500 a day or even 1,000 a day very soon. This will have a very big humanitarian effect. And maybe this is what Russia hopes, at least. It will also have a psychological effect, so the Ukrainian public does not support its government and the defense anymore. I think it's not working. From what I see, I've been to Ukraine, I think 15 times altogether in my life. And I have not spoken to many Ukrainians who have said, if Russia is attacking us more, we will give up faster. I don't think this is working.
And The Economist reports that Russia is preparing to launch 1,000 drones simultaneously into Ukraine. For realistic, what do you think this figure is?
Well, I think Ukrainian military has said some days ago it should be 500 soon. I think this is realistic. Of course, I mean, Russia is still increasing its military production. We have seen these images from the factories, from the Shahid or Geran Dva factories. They are producing very fast. They are producing even more. As everyone knows, Russia still gets, if I'm not mistaken, 640 million euros of income out of resource export every day. This is so much money. This is much more than all European Union and American sanctions are stopping Russia to flow. And of course, you know that the biggest trade partners of Russia are China, India, and Turkey. And if you look at these three countries, there are no restrictions so far. No American secondary sanctions, no German or European secondary sanctions. So far, Russia has enough potential, financial resources to build more and more of these drones. And as I said before, there are different reasons to launch them. One is strategic, one is psychological, another one is symbolic. And all of these reasons, I think, work together and are important to Mr. Putin. So he will try to increase the number of daily terror drone attacks on Ukraine.
And what do you know about Russia's possibilities to produce this number of drones?
Yeah. Well, I cannot look into the Russian industry, but as I just said, it's Ukrainian army analysis saying that they will soon be ready to launch 500 a day of the Shahid. This is a lot. This is almost, it doubles from what Russia has been able to launch 6 months ago. So I think it's still increasing. I mean, this is what we are seeing. We are not seeing anything else. I know Ukraine is striking some of the factories, but to be very honest, I think it has very, very minor effect. You see that Russia is launching many more drones, many more missiles, and it has also minor effect on Ukrainian defense industry. So if you see all this, and Ukraine is totally within range of Russian Shahids and Russian X-101 and all these other missiles, Russia on the other side is not totally in range. I think the first 1,000 kilometers, maybe 1,200 kilometers are in range. And also if you see the warheads from the Ukrainian drones, they are much, much smaller than the warheads from the Russian drones, what we have seen over the past days. So I think Ukraine is trying to decrease Russian capacities. But I think so far, I mean, I can only guess and estimate here, but I would say not more than 5 to 10% of Russian capacity was destroyed by Ukraine. So this means Russia is still able to produce 90% of what it wants to produce. And as I just said, they have more financial resources and they're putting more into their war industry every month. So I think it is still increasing.
Okay, The Economist also reports that there may not be enough Patriot systems in Ukraine to combat ballistic missiles during massive shelling. What defense strategy should Ukraine choose in this case?
Yes, I absolutely agree. Also, from what I am hearing, the Le Monde, the French newspaper today, reported that the missiles for the French-Italian system are running out, or maybe they are already close to zero. I'm also hearing that the PAC-3 missiles, so the most modern missiles against ballistic missiles, they're also running out. They are no new from the Americans, and this is why Germany thinks about sending older ones, PAC-2 missiles, which can unfortunately not be used against ballistic missiles. And I think maybe you will ask the question later, what about the new Iskander-M? Are they upgraded? I think it's both. They are getting better and Ukraine's air defense is getting worse. I would love to tell you a solution here. I would love to tell you what you can do, but I don't know what to do if your enemy uses ballistic missiles and has a steady production of this, also from Calibre and many other cruise missiles. And you're running out of air defense missiles. So I have really no idea what to do here. I think Ukraine is very good and very effective, the best country in Europe, you have to say, when it comes to defense against long-range kamikaze drones. We have seen the videos from F-16, from helicopters, from Brownings, from these Jeeps, mobile units, and so many other equipment, which is used every day to minimize the threat from Shahid drones. But at the same time, it is a matter of fact that Ukraine had only a limited number of Patriot and other missiles, Iris-T as well, and NASAMS and other systems. And this number is decreasing. It's clearly faster decreasing than the Russians, which are daily or almost daily sending new cruise missiles and ballistic missiles into Ukraine. So, I mean, this is just a matter of mathematics. You have less defense. The Russians have more attack or offensive means. So this means the results will be even more bitter over the next weeks, months, and if it goes on, years.
Vladimir Zelensky is going to Germany with the official visit on this Wednesday. How do you think can we count on more news about weapons? More good news, I mean.
Yeah, I think there has been enough hugging, I would say. There has been so much hugging between Mr. Merz and Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Starmer and Mr. Macron and Mr. Duda. And we saw in the end that it didn't help. It didn't convince Mr. Trump. This is one thing. It doesn't convince Mr. Trump to increase the sanctions. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I hear you. You can.
Okay, sorry, I got a call and now I cannot see you.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. I try
okay,
once
yes.
again. Okay, yes. Sorry. Okay, so I answer again your question. Okay, so I think there's no more time for hugging. There has been so many hugs in Kiev between the leaders, Starmer, Macron, Duda, Merz and Zelensky, and it didn't convince Mr. Trump in the United States. So it just didn't help much. So I think if Chancellor Merz is inviting President Zelensky now to Berlin, there have to be announcements. There have to be something new on the table, and there have to be announcements also of weapons deliveries. I don't know of which kind. I don't know if Mr. Merz will jump over his own shadow and deliver truce. I don't know if he will increase the German support, for example, for the Ukrainian defense industry, which would also be interesting, or if he will maybe give other weapons packages. You know, we have given a lot. Germany has given a lot. I think 12 billion worth in euros so far, which we have given to Ukraine in terms of defense capabilities. And if there is their new package, this would be really important because this would be the first new package under Mr. Merz. You know that there has been another 3 billion announcement, but basically it was there to pay what was already promised last year. And this, it's a tricky situation. I think Mr. Merz has to deliver now. He knows that the Americans are not on board. They're not giving more weapons. They're not giving more sanctions so far. And we don't know what Mr. Trump will do next. So if Mr. Merz wants to turn out to be a big leader in Europe, and if he wants to be remembered as the person who did not throw Ukraine under the train, I think there have to be new announcements of military support this Wednesday.
Do you have any information about the military resources accumulated by Russia? How long can Russia continue to carry out this massive shelling?
Well, also here, I'm depending on Ukrainian sources. We have heard over the past couple of days and weeks that Russia has accumulated, I think, 50,000 soldiers for a new offensive. We have seen the shelling in Vovchansk. We have seen the shelling also coming from Kupiansk area to northern Sumy area. We know that the Russians are building a stronger bridgehead there. You know, they already occupy, I think, 5 or 6 villages north of Yanukivka. I think the most southern one is Loknya. And they're trying to advance. So they are trying to build this buffer zone as we speak. I don't expect this giant new offensive starting today and suddenly then 10,000 soldiers are moving forward. I think what we have to expect is something that, like what we have seen last year in Lipsy and Hlyboke area north of Kharkiv and in Vovchansk area, that Russia will cross the border and they will try to slowly move forward. And I think it's still possible, yes, from what I'm seeing, and especially what I'm seeing also in the drone sector. You know, these fiber wire guided drones. I think in the first last year we have seen them in Kursk first. And then I have heard some Ukrainian analysts saying, yes, but they are not reliable and 90% of them crash. And it's really hard with these fiber wire, these 10-kilometer cable behind them. And now we are seeing 1,000 fiber wire drones per day being used by Russia. And it absolutely changes the battlefield. It absolutely changes how Ukrainian soldiers can move. And basically every civilian or military vehicle, you know, many of the vehicles unfortunately are not armed, are pickups, within 10 to 20 kilometers of the front line, they're getting destroyed by Russia right now. I don't want to say it's a game changer because many things were called a game changer, and in the end, the other side could adapt to it and could find something to counter it. So I hope Ukraine will find something to counter the fiber wire drones. But it is a massive increase in fighting capacity from the Russian side. In the beginning, they were in Kursk, then they were the first in Kharkiv, then there were some in Donetsk, and now they are along the entire front. So it's a 1,000 kilometers long front where they are using fiber wire guided drones over the entire area. And I think, and I hear from Ukrainian soldiers that this makes it even more hard for them and more dangerous for them to defend Ukraine.
So you think that now it's differs the situation of this year of this so-called summer offensive is not the summer offensive last year, as I understand you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, last year you were getting like every month, you were getting Bradleys from the United States, you were getting Marders from Germany, you were still building your brigades in the background. They were being trained and built. And what about this year? I mean, how many armored vehicles are you still getting? It's a very small number, I would say. Last year there was much optimism about the F-16. They were all coming. Now we heard from Netherlands over the past days that the last are coming right now. We have seen, I think, 3 crashes so far, which does not mean that they are all used. I think there are still 20, 30 in background, which can be used. But still, I mean, the resupply right now, it's very small, I would say. It's much smaller than last year. Of course, the Ukrainian industry is better, and this is a good thing. The Ukrainian industry is producing more FPV drones, is producing more Bogdanas, is producing more artillery, ammunition, and so on. So a lot of things. Also these long-range drones, which are almost every night hitting Russian strategic targets, they are getting built, many more than in the past. But still, I think Mr. Putin recently bragged about that he would now have 60,000 new volunteers to fight and kill and die in Ukraine every month. And from what I hear, these numbers are almost correct. I also heard another estimate from a pro-Ukrainian source some days ago. It said 1,500 a day, which would make 45,000 per month. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And you may not forget that Ukrainian soldiers, many of them are exhausted. Many of them are fighting for 2 or 3 years. Some new are coming, yes. But from the Russian side, they are wasting their people. They are wasting their soldiers. And they will have many fresh soldiers this summer for the new offensive. Of course, they are not so, let's say, experienced, which might be a problem. But it's not Russia's strategy to have experienced soldiers. They want to have meat. They want to have people who are getting wasted very fast in the battle. So I don't know if it will be much different. I'm just seeing that the Russian production is increasing, ever increasing, while Ukraine has lots of supply problems, especially because of the Western partners. So this might be another challenging summer for Ukraine.
Okay, talking about the occupiers that Putin is going to put on the front for this summer offensive, Putin said about the 343,000 occupiers. What do you know? Where will these people come from, and how effective can they be on the battlefield?
Well, it doubles a little bit what I just said. I think they're coming from all over Russia. As far as I know, the people are coming more from the poorer areas and more from the eastern areas, where it's only one reason why this bonus, the beginning bonus for the Russian, let's say, how it's called, this not a conscript, but the contract soldier, the Russian contract soldiers. I think these bonuses are still lower in the east than in Moscow region and St. Petersburg region, and still more people are applying. I think it's 50,000 euros from the beginning in the east, and it's 75,000 or something like this in Moscow. And still you have so many poor people, so many people living under bad conditions in Russia that they are voluntarily going to the army. And as I said, voluntarily going to occupy, kill, and probably get killed in Ukraine. So I think, yes, this is a huge potential. Russia has, I think, right now more than 4 times as many inhabitants as Ukraine. And they're living under much worse conditions and under this, I would say, fascist propaganda, which is going on all the time. And which is also giving the people the impression, I heard this over the past couple of days in some discussions, that the war will soon be over. So either it's better for you to register now, to make a contract now, because then you get the 50,000 euros and you get the 1 year contract. So what does this mean? Another 4,000 euros per month. And maybe we will not even use you at the front line. We will just put you into some barracks, or you will just guard the front line. This is what the Russian propaganda, I heard, is telling the Russian soldiers to attract them, to make them feel like, oh, maybe it's my last chance to get this bonus. Maybe it's my last chance to go to the army. I think we all know the reality is different. They want these soldiers as meat. They want these soldiers to get killed in Ukraine. And I think, unfortunately, from the Russian government or Russian leadership point of view, it's not bad to lose poor and uneducated and maybe unemployed people in Ukraine. So unfortunately, I think their resources are very, very big. At the same time, of course, they are producing new weapons, not as many as in the past. They used a lot of their stocks, but I think altogether it could still be, as I said, challenging for Ukraine. It could still be a big offensive. Again, not something that sweeps into the country as we have seen in February 22, but something that increases over the days. And we have heard this today from Ukrainian analysts that they are thinking that the Sumy offensive will widen. I think it's going to the west, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, northwest of Yanukivka. There are new attempts by the Russians to cross the border and to get into the first villages. And frankly speaking, in the past, this worked. I mean, in the past, this simply worked by the Russians, either in Lipsy or in Vovchansk or in Basivka area. It worked everywhere where they tried. Not on day one, they lost a lot of people, a lot of infantry fighting vehicles, but maybe on day 20 or day 40, they were inside and they captured the first village at least.
As I understand, there is no necessary for Putin to announce a total mobilization in Russia.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if these numbers are correct, I think I have heard that this 60,000 number, it includes people who register again. You may not forget that they have 1 year contracts. So many of them are dropping out of the army after 1 year, but they want to be back in. So think about this. Although their possibility to die is so high in Ukraine, they still think it's more attractive to fight and maybe die in Ukraine than to live in some village near Ulan-Ude or something like this. So this says a lot about Russia, I would say. But again, if these numbers are true, this does not mean the whole capacity of soldiers increases by 60,000 per month, but maybe it increases by 30,000 or 40,000. And this is still a lot, because even if the Ukrainian claims about Russian casualties are correct, this means 1,000 Russian soldiers approximately a day are being killed or wounded. This would mean that Russia could replace every casualty it has in Ukraine. They could replace it, and they could even have more soldiers in Ukraine the next month. And you have to think about this. So again, if the Ukrainian numbers are right, and Russia is able to attract, let's say, 35,000 or 40,000 new contract soldiers per month, it means the Russian arsenal is increasing, no matter how many Ukraine kills.
The Financial Times writes that some EU countries have advocated the mobilization of resources due a possible threat from Russia. Is Europe really preparing for a direct confrontation with Russia, and how real is this threat, in your opinion?
Yes, I would say the conflict or the war in Ukraine absolutely is interconnected with any potential Russian invasion of Europe. So as long as Russia is fighting in Ukraine and losing men in Ukraine, as I just said, if the Ukrainian numbers are right, they are losing 30,000 dead and wounded per month, which is still a lot. They cannot wage another war against Lithuania or Estonia or Latvia. I think it's not possible. At the same time, of course, these countries have to be prepared, because there are signs, at least signs on the horizon, that there might be a forced peace, a forced ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. I mean, Mr. Zelensky is advocating for a 30-day ceasefire, I think, since March, if I'm not mistaken. And if this comes into effect, I think no one seriously thinks that after 30 days there will be a new Ukrainian counteroffensive. Everyone thinks that if there is a ceasefire for 30 days and both sides agree, again, I don't see why Russia should agree, because they're still advancing. But if Russia agrees, then I think everyone knows that after 30 days there will be no sudden going back to the front line or no sudden resume of fighting, but it will be more likely, I think, a permanent ceasefire. And in this case, if there's a permanent ceasefire, I think it is likely that Russia will redeploy forces. They will redeploy forces. And probably to the Slovakia gap, probably to another area, probably even to Finland. So if the fighting stops in Ukraine, and that's why I'm always saying Ukraine is buying time for us by sacrificing its own people, unfortunately, and everything we have to do is give some weapons. But still, if this happens, then, of course, the possibility of a war in Europe increases every day.
And my last question to you, Mr. Röpcke, Western European countries and NATO members expect that in the coming months, the United States of America will announce a reduction in its military presence in Europe. If this happens, how significantly will this affect European security?
Well, okay. First, I'm not sure about this. I think during the last Trump presidency, there have been more soldiers, especially in Poland, being sent by the Americans. Also, I've been to Estonia recently, talked to the defense minister and other security officials, and they have not seen any signs of America reducing its presence in the Baltic states. I think if there would be an agreement about Ukraine, it could be a holistic agreement. It could be a deal, as Mr. Trump always says, between Putin and Trump or between the United States and Russia. And this could include some withdrawal of American forces. But I don't see this. And Mr. Putin is not willing to sign a deal because his ideology is will to destroy Ukraine, to destroy Ukrainian people, identity and culture and nation. It's so strong that he's not willing to have a deal. So whenever the Americans are reaching out, stretching out their hand, he's basically cutting off the hand, which is being stretched out. And this is why I don't see a deal there. I don't see a peaceful settlement between the United States and Russia. And this also means that the likelihood of the United States decreasing troops in Europe is quite small right now. I don't know what will be the next presidency. I think if someone like J.D. Vance, who said several times that he doesn't like Europe so much, if someone like him is a president, this might be a new story. But for Mr. Trump, I think he has enough pressure on him from Lindsey Graham and many other senators and also his foreign policy advisors, enough pressure on him to say we should not let Europe alone, because once Europe is alone, we will be alone. And to be alone against China is, I think, not the best idea.
Thank you, Mr. Röpcke, for this conversation. And I would like to ask our viewers to like this video and share their thoughts on our conversation in the comments. Let me remind you that the guest of this stream was build analyst Julian Röpcke. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.